allows you to stab a bale and maneuver it into the extractor load area. Oh, that was a bit of a mess up. Let's do that. With the extractor, it's possible to queue up a stack of bales on it. It frequently fails and the bales fall off, but sometimes it will wrap them sequentially, so you can put 3 bales on the top and it'll just do its thing. And I don't think we need, well, okay, as far as clover silage is concerned, we do need to now survive. It's early fall. We've got to make our way all the way to late spring with the supplies we have. Now we got a row of round ones over there, which maybe 8, I guess, but I'm only using 1 a day, or 2 a day. But we got 3 days, okay, so 9-day seasons. So we've got 6 days of fall, plus 18, 24. We need about 48. I might have that many. The ones we have are up at the main, or the square ones we have are up at the main yard. That's at the right angle. And didn't work quite so well. The nice thing about the JCB is that 4-wheel steer will be able to pick this up. I actually was watching a video on YouTube yesterday, different types of bale pickup wagons, and it did feature the Anderson round, what was it, the RB whatever it is. This thing, the RBM Pro, and a lot of self-propelled bale collection things. There's one that kind of looked like a combine harvester without a header on, and it just drove straight over the top of the bale. And then in the back it arranged them into a stack of 21 bales, wrapped them all together and dropped them out the back. Kind of cool things. Anyway, let's jump over here, do a quick count. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, 17, 31. So we got 31 bales down here. And I said I want about 48. So maybe another 14 will work for us. Don't want to be in there, don't want to be in there. That'll do. Now we do have the collection trailer out by the other field. But as I said, I might do the bale collection with the semi-truck. I don't want to start collecting. Well, okay, it doesn't matter if I drive on the clover fields anymore, because we're not going to make a third cut this year. Grass fields, we've got 2 of those, and those probably will get another cut. Actually, we've got more than 2 grass fields. Because there's the pasture, or it's now a field that's behind the cow barn that may also be available to cut grass. The other thing I might look at doing, we have a loading wagon. I'm hoping I don't need that anymore. But the big question is the what is it? Is me planting that field, the sheep field at the top? What is it? Oakfield sheep pasture. We ploughed that up and planted it with grass in the hope of fixing the auto fill logic. I'm guessing pasture doesn't work, but fields do. And the thing with the grass field in front of us has always been a field, so the grass automatically loads to the sheep trough. So over the course of probably late spring through late fall, I don't have to worry about providing grass to the sheep in the field adjacent to us now. I do have to worry about providing grass to the sheep in the top field, or I have done. Also, that grass hasn't started growing yet. I'm kind of hoping as soon as it starts to grow, it'll start immediately replenishing that food trough. So I'd like to make sure that the sheep stay well fed. If the worst comes to the worst, we'll grab a single mower and the loading wagon and mow parts of the field next to this one. Well, time is passing, I guess. So, as I said, that one needs hay. We've got a ton of hay in the shed. This one, it's fresh grass, clover, fresh maize, and hay pellets. And as I pointed out, hay pellets is $500,000 or 500,000 pounds of equipment needed to make pellets. And I'm not really willing to spend that amount of money right now on pellet making equipment. Maize is corn that is harvested with a forager, and we can get a cheap tractor hauled forager, just make a small field. But then I will probably need a silage trailer to haul that in. Not a problem. We could swap our loading wagon for a silage hauler. And then I think the field that currently has potatoes in it, we could make that a silage or a maize field for next year. But that's still a long way off before we get any return on that. So we're going to have to make do with grass. The problem is I couldn't get clover to feed into the animal troughs. Of course, I've not been able to test that on the sheep down here because that field is auto-replenishing the grass requirement, so it's always 100% filled with grass. Anyway, kind of fun messing around with what we're messing around with. So I think major news this week, Oxygen David has released a demo of Calmsden Farm for FarmSim19, which, as far as I'm aware, is not going to be released to the general public. It's some YouTubers and some testers are gaining access to just, first look at the map type of thing. But that is going to be a FarmSim22 map, as pretty much close to as the mod hub becomes released. Normally what we see is the game is released, and we get most of the DLCs that we've seen this year. So next year we'll have Rotney, lumberjacking equipment, oh good grief, forestry equipment included in the game. We'll have the Grimmer potato harvesting stuff as well. The John Deere cotton harvester would be included in FarmSim22. This is going off what they've done in the past when a new release has come out, but they will occasionally hold back some things. So they might hold back, say, the John Deere cotton harvester and not release that in FarmSim22. Instead, release it as a Giants mod, and the first dozen mods on the mod hub generally are Giants mods of equipment that you would have expected to have been in the main release, but instead they held it back so they can so they can test the mod hub. And so the mod hub's going to get hit hard with people downloading that stuff. Last year, was it for FarmSim19? It was the Big Bud tractors weren't included in FarmSim19. They were added on the mod hub. Estancia Lapacho was added on the mod hub. I'm kind of expecting... They've said we're getting 3 maps. So we're getting the American map, the Mediterranean map, and Erlengrad. But I wouldn't be surprised if Erlengrad is not included in the base game, but is instead first map released on the mod hub, week 1 of release, possibly even first day of release, because that's what they did with the Estancia Lapacho last year, or when this game came out. And then generally we get to see modders, the simple modding stuff, things like bale spikes and what have you, get added within the first couple of weeks. Obviously has to go through Giants testing, and once the game's released, Giants testing can then go on to testing modders' submissions. And the first maps usually about 3 to 4 weeks in, so it probably won't be until New Year until we see the brand new maps, or the mod maps coming in. But you know, for people like Oxygen Davies, if he can, if he can get the map released to testers in 19, they can point out, oh, you've got floating trees here, or this isn't working, this cell point isn't accepting corn, or, you know, stupid stuff like that. And he said, you know, it's very difficult to get a map 100% perfect. There's almost always going to be something you didn't notice and your testers didn't notice that stays there for the life of the map. And yeah, it is what it is. They're complicated beasts. But if you can get as much of it reviewed by testers and get all the obviously silly stuff, like, as I said, floating trees or things like that, fixed, then when it comes to FS22 there will be far less problems potentially that Giants may find with the map. They usually do, so it goes through a couple of rounds of testing. But Calmsden doesn't look to be that big or complex of a map. And he's spending most of his time working on sort of graphical issues, the models, the houses, the barns, that sort of thing, making them look realistic. Also wondering how Black Sheep are doing with, what's their one? The Aldstream Farm. Because they've said they're releasing that one, but going back to the Farm Sim 15 version of it and bringing it up to FS22 specs. Now that's a map I like to take a look at. Because it does, you know, it does feel sort of genuine old Europe type of villages, and I like to play it at least for a short bit. I mean, I've put so many hours into that map over 17 and 19, basically playing 2 game saves per game. That it's sort of, you play it for the familiarity, so I can get used to the change in game rules, if you like. You know, how has harvesting wheat changed? Probably not a lot. But you can test, you can try out the new things. You can do things like test how much seed is used and what yields you're getting. There was a big difference in between 17 and 19, I believe, where canola became the cheapest crop to plant because it uses substantially less seed than any other crop except for oilseed radish. So it's a good starting farmer crop for 19, but it wasn't for 17. I think for 17, what was it? Soybeans used the least amount of seed, gave you the least amount of yield, but the value of the crop was the highest. And it's sort of subtle changes like that. You know, wheat and barley use the same amount of seed in 19, but they yield, barley yields maybe about 5% more than wheat does. So its value is about 5% less than wheat. To compensate for that difference. So they're worth, you know, On paper, they're worth about the same. If you're making pig food, however, barley's the better bet because you get more volume of barley, 5% more, so it'll go further with the pig feeding thing. Same with chickens. I can't remember if chickens take barley or not. Chickens. Oh, yeah, of course. Chickens take. We're playing with seasons, so animals take lots of different types of food, which isn't quite so obvious in base game. I think maybe potatoes yields more per acre than sugar beets, but they're a bigger pain in the butt to plant and harvest. They cost way more to plant because they use 10 times the seed that everything else does. So, but just because of the pain of harvesting potatoes, if I'm doing pigs, I'll generally feed them sugar beets because it's easier. But there's all those things that you kind of need to familiarise yourself with when a new game comes out. And there's the new crops as well. So I tend to take a little time out in a map that's familiar to figure out all those differences between the 19 and 22 in this case. And then go and explore some new maps. Usually when Seasons comes out, I'll start a game save on the old stream farm with Seasons just to learn the differences with Seasons. But that's going to be incorporated into the base game now, so less of a wait for that. And the other thing I've heard rumoured is there's going to be more old equipment available at the release in-game, which could be fun. Yeah, it's part of the problem. If you like playing with small farms and you look at smallest tractors, I mean, what are we looking at? Fiat's old, the Valtra's new and cheap and quite good, the Fendt Favourite is old, but then you're getting up into, the T5 is 83,000. If you want something like this, 10-year-old tractor, 45,000, they're not generally included in the base game. And so if you want to do the old 50 horsepower tractor with a 2-blade plough and a 2-metre cultivator and a seeder that doesn't need a PTO attachment, that's not going to be something you can do until the modders really start getting up to speed and producing that equipment. Oh, that's a nice dodge there. Now 36 minutes into this task. I don't know, I think I've wrapped more than 36 bales, so that's kind of okay. It's more than 1 a minute. Sure, if you're supposed to race around with the wrapper with the bale in it. I've never actually seen one of these being used, or YouTube video with one being used, so I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with them, or the proper way to use them. I've seen the small, I don't know if I've got, let's go back to baling. It's the problem, they didn't include it in the game. So I've seen something like this being used, which is a round baler wrapper. And it wasn't used in the field. The farmer had it. He actually had it attached to a pickup truck, so I'm assuming it's not a. They generally don't have a PTO or something like that even, but it's not a PTO. It's a plug into the power outlet on your truck, and they had tractors with a little 3-point linkage bale forks, bale spikes on them. And two older tractors just running out to the field, stabbing 2 bales, bringing them back to the yard, and then they would load the bales onto that wrapper and just wrap them in the yard and stack them there. So the wrapped bales weren't getting moved around, they were wrapped where they were needed. I actually did a read up on how to make silage bales. There's a lot of legal issues that have to be taken into account, and so wrapping your bales on a field and then moving them, you're risking tearing the wrapping and ending up with rotten silage or not silage because of it. So you have, once it's wrapped and placed down, that's kind of where you want it left, which is why the X-tractors are so, I like them because they encourage realistic play. You're going out to the field, you're bringing your bales in, and then you're sticking in the wrapper, and the wrapper's just making the long snake of wrapped bales, which then ferment into silage. But you put the extractor where you want your bales stored, not in the middle of the field, which is theoretically how you're supposed to do it. I do know, there are some farmers will wrap on the field, but once you've moved the bales off the field, you then have to check the bales and make sure the wrapping's not torn. And even once you've wrapped them and they're sitting there fermenting, you have to go and check the bales every so often to make sure the critters aren't getting into them, because the birds will peck at the wrapping, and field mice and other rodents will peck at the wrapping to get what's inside, and that makes a mess of things. You can't store them close to water, you have to store them where the runoff is collected and won't get into the water supply. All sorts of